What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 5-2 show. Tonight, we have an awesome guest. I'm really excited. Ivan from Watch the Breaks. If you don't know, he has a phenomenal Twitter page. Awesome content about the hobby on every level. Super cool dude. He also has an amazing platform that's grown by the day, ISO Commerce. We want to talk about that a little later. Right now, I want to introduce Ivan. Welcome to the 5-2 show. Appreciate you coming on, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be with you guys.
Awesome, man. Yeah, so for me, my question most of the time to people is like your background. Like, how did it all start with cards?
Well, we were just talking, my background sucks because I just moved. And so you guys have these great collecting backgrounds. My background is just plain and dull. If it looks like a Midwest basement, and that's because it is. Sorry, no, I can't help a kid.
No, of course.
No, well, so I grew up collecting in the 80s, big Chicago Cubs guy, and collected all through junior high, through high school, and then sort of gave up after I got a car and a job and was applying to colleges. That was right when the hobby just exploded in the late 90s. And I was actually chasing this one guy, Darnay Scott. No one even knows who he is. He was a second round Bengals wide receiver, but he was my PC. And in 1997, I woke up and I was like, there's too many cards of him to collect. I can't collect them all. And it kind of spoiled me on the hobby for a bit, in addition to all those other things. So fast forward, I'm in Los Angeles now after college, working, and I'd pick up a few packs here and there, or a few boxes, and I'd literally rip the box and then put the cards back in the pack because, living in LA when you're young and single, you're moving every 6 months. And finally, I moved into this new apartment, and I actually moved with a lady, and I felt like this might be serious. And the apartment was big and it felt permanent. And as we're unpacking everything, I'm like, oh, here's this closet where I can put these 4 or 5 boxes of cards that I've accumulated over the last 4 years. And I actually had space for them. So I unpacked them and I started sorting them. And that was 2011. And I instantly got hooked back into it. Well, ended up living in that apartment for over 10 years. Ended up marrying that woman and having children with her. So there was a lot of permanence there.
That's cool.
Not the least of which was getting back into collecting really hardcore. Well, I was in Hollywood to do entertainment things. And one of the things that I realized was, I could make a web series about my collecting, make it like a comedy. And so I did that, and we did a 10-episode web series, and it was called The Breaks, which is why my name is Watch the Breaks. I don't actually do, breaks 24/7. It's not my full-time job, but that's where my Twitter handle came from. This little comedy series about how breaking always got in the way of my, there was a relationship issue every episode and a baseball card issue every episode, and they sort of clashed together. And from there, I just started, people just started following on Twitter, and I do a lot of talking about the hobby. And then I got a podcast with GTS, Go GTS Live, that I did for 7 years. And that afforded me a lot of behind the scenes opportunities. So I got to go to the hobby events. I got to meet the breakers, as well as the executives, the creatives, the people at Panini, Topps, Upper Deck. And so I got a really unique perspective. And I think that's why a lot of people follow me, is because I tried to share as much of that perspective as I could from all sides. I mean, yeah, there's times that the manufacturer just messes up, but I will say there's a lot of things that the manufacturer doesn't like that they're just stuck having to do. So I try to show that, and also try to show that, hey, here's what the collector's going through. Here's what they're experiencing. It's not all just, we rip and eat whatever you feed us, and like really try to have a two-way street of dialogue. So I think that's kind of how my Twitter feed became what it has today. So, yeah, that's my long story on collecting background.
No, I didn't know a lot of that stuff. It's funny that me and you were in LA at the same time.
Yeah.
Then I was in the TV and entertainment business. So it's funny. It's funny when you say it. It's just weird how life goes. We're here, talking about, cards, and we were there at the same place. Question I do have, of all your original cards that you collected, that did you have any cards from there that were ended up being worth anything, or do you still have them, or did you grade any of them?
Uh, no, yes, and no.
Okay. Okay.
So actually it was about 4 years ago. I came back to home and finally got to go through my old collection. Since all this craziness of like collecting almost full time had taken off for me. And there was zero value in any of what I'd had.
Man.
I mean, maybe like there's like a Greg Maddux rated rookie, Donruss rated rookie. Like, yeah, it's worth something. But man, I had so much like 90s football and like Marshall Falk rookies. I love Marshall Falk, Hall of Famer, like incredible player.
Worth nothing, right?
Yeah, and they're worth nothing. I loved here's one other thing like that informs some of my takes on the hobby that you might hear filter through the rest of the conversation. Like when I was a kid, we didn't have a lot of money at all. A couple nationals ago, Jeff Hoffer, he was running Pack Geek at the time. He sat me down and we ripped a 1989 Upper Deck, like 5 packs each together. And I realized as I was going through them, I didn't actually get the same feeling I get from ripping 1990 Donruss with somebody, because I didn't recognize these cards like I did because we couldn't afford $1.99 packs. I was buying the 40-cent packs.
Yep.
Like I don't have the same familiarity with every base card in Upper Deck from 89 as I do with every base card from 89 Tops. So yeah, a lot of what we collected was I had tons of collector's choice. I thought the Upper Deck You Crash the Game, I thought was one of the coolest contests ever. If you remember that, where it's like if they hit a home run, you got a set. If they hit if they had a touchdown. That's actually how Darnay Scott became my PC. The week before the season started, I ripped a couple packs of Upper Deck Collector's Choice football 1994, and I pulled a You Crash the Game of him. And then week 1 was his week, and he scored a touchdown in the 4th quarter. And this was when you couldn't watch either. We didn't have Red Zone. I found out he scored a touchdown because it was then in the 4th quarter. They'd already switched to highlights of like the new games and Ticker having the new games. Nobody's pointing out like the Bengals lost, but in the 4th quarter, this 2nd round pick got a touchdown. So I found out through the box score in the newspaper the next day, oh, that guy actually scored a touchdown. And that's when I started collecting him. So
Cool.
I've still got, it's behind me over there, but like I culled what was out of my parents' collection down into literally like one double wide shoebox of just cards I loved, including all my Darnay Scotts, but there was nothing of value there at all.
It's funny about Upper Deck. Me and Joe always talk about how the photography in the early 90s of Upper Deck was amazing. Like the shots they had, the shots on the back, it was they did some funny stuff. They put some really candid pictures. I mean, the photography, I mean, the cards are not worth really anything, but in terms of a collector where you don't care about the price of the card, just the card, there's some amazing shots of Upper Deck.
Yeah, people forget like Upper Deck was 89, Stadium Club was 91. Like Stadium Club was a response to Upper Deck.
Yep.
It wasn't a pioneer of photography. It was trying to catch up to the fact that, oh, collectors now have photography to chase in cards. So
that's a good call.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about Donruss and Flair, because me and Joe, on the East Coast, those cards were kind of a treat. So if you ever saw them at the store, they were like the rack pack was significantly more or whatever. But it was kind of like, once in a while I get one to be like a treat, like, oh, I got a Donruss pack, So nowadays I'm super into them, but I did pull one of those. This is actually a 96 one, but this Bonds, I actually just got this back. Like about, I don't know, Joe, when was this? 2 months ago? I got this one back, but this is one of my favorite cards. It's one of the coolest insert sets that they started doing.
Joe has an amazing collection of 90s inserts. Unreal.
Really?
He really does. Yeah.
I love that stuff. To me, it's like just super interesting. I'm trying to collect one card of every insert set from the 90s and maybe more of certain sets that I like, but it's just a cool journey because I stopped collecting early 90s, early mid 90s. So did Joe. And, we did whatever kids do at that age, hang out with girls and all that stuff, play music. But that, that kind of whole era really was just unbelievable. So when you said coming back to it, it's just it's kind of a different thing because like you have money now, or
Yeah.
like money, not that, not rich, but like you could buy a box. When you're a kid, you're like, wow, let me get 3 packs. Let me spend $1.20 and get 3
For
packs
real.
at a time. So now it's like, oh, let me buy, whatever.
Yeah,
Overpriced.
every time I rip a box, I still take the extra minute to like pop out the stand and like put it in there. Like I don't just pull the cards out. It's like, no, hold on. I own a box of cards. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Because when you were a kid, you never like you got 2 packs, 4 packs if you were lucky.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you're right. Like we can spend, back then spending $40 on a box was impossible. Now I can spend $100 without, batting too many eyelashes to rip a box all the way through. So.
And it's still fun to rip an old box that's not worth anything. I mean, just for the fact, like Joe said, there's cards that like from that era, like I wasn't able to rip, like like a 88 Fleer box or something, or maybe I wasn't able to get those cards really, or something like that. And you just open it and it's just like, wow, you go back in your childhood and you just forget about, am I going to hit an amazing card to go send to PSA? It's just like, wow, yo, I pulled this card. And, that's how it was when we were younger. When you pulled the Ken Griffey Jr., that was the only Ken Griffey Jr. rookie there was. There was, obviously Topps, Donruss, forever, but I mean, in that set, if you pulled his rookie, it was his rookie. And you didn't look at the centering. You didn't care. I have Griffey Jr.'s rookie. And that's all it meant, was that you had his rookie. So it's just a different world, a different time,
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely is. I will say, I don't hate the time we're in, though. I really like the time we're in for all of its peculiarities and all of its uniqueness. Grading is actually a huge example of that. And I'm not even a huge grader necessarily, but I will tell you this. People say, well, you should be able to tell if the card is a 10 or not. I can't. I'm the worst at that. Like if I try that, when I've sent my own cards in for grading, I get the spectrum of results. And when I send them to somebody that evaluates cards first, they're like, okay, these 9 are going to be 9s, these 7 are going to be 10s, and these ones are going to be 8s or lower. And then I send them and they literally get a sheet back that's almost exactly that. And I'm like, I can't tell that. And where it's important to me is not necessarily that I need someone else's validation either, but it's when I was a kid, and I'm sure it persists today. I sadly don't get to as many hobby shops as I'd like to, or even as I did when I was a kid. You go into the hobby shop and you ask the condition, oh, it's gem mint. Or even at a card show, everything somebody's selling is gem mint.
Yeah, yeah.
And so to have third parties that actually look at it and help distinguish that, even if they are wrong from time to time, I think it is miles better if you really are precise and care that much about it. Now then, will I go and buy a PSA 8 that has eye appeal? Absolutely. But I think it helps a lot to know, hey, this is a PSA 8 or it's a PSA 9. There's eye appeal, but there's something on the back scuffing that I would miss if I was just looking at it myself.
Yep.
Yeah. It's hard to tell sometimes. I just did a pretty decent sized wrestling sub, and the Rob Van Dam Joe got an 8, and I thought that was perfect. And I also subbed these 2 Sabus that come out of this crazy action figure. You get them out of an action figure, and they're all messed up. And I was like, these Sabus, they might get an 8, but nobody has them graded. So I graded. I got, oh, awesome. Well, yeah. Oh, thank you, brother. That is awesome.
Well, it's awesome, except I'm actually a little bit guilty. I still haven't opened it.
Joe, we get that from a lot of people though. They're like, you know what? I like the box. I don't even want to mess around with it.
Well, part of it was, Joe, if you remember when I got this, it was like I was just catching up on mail. It was late at night. I'm like, well, I'm not going to open that yet because nobody's going to see the opening. And then it got buried, and I literally like once every 5 days, I'm like, oh, I need to get around to that. But I'm so swamped behind stuff. So, Joe, don't let me not open this tomorrow or Saturday. Okay, ping me and remind me. Like,
I'll remind you.
Got to preview that Waxteria Pro Wrestling series, and I love what you guys are doing with like branching out with different things that when you were a kid you couldn't get a Sabu autograph, right? Like where would you get that when you were a kid?
he never had an on-card autograph ever. So,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, that's one reason why we felt he's such an icon in what he did. You know, I look at it like, yeah,
Mhm.
but for what he did in ECW, he was a trendsetter. He really was. And that was a reason why we wanted to get, especially for your first set that you do, you want it to be someone where people could be like, wow, you got him for your first set. But it
Yeah.
also sets the bar now for us to, we're
Yeah,
working on the next one.
who's on deck for you? Who's left to be on deck for you when you get a legend to start?
Yeah, that's it's fun now. Now we have to really, push ourselves to, make the set, keep going up and up. But yeah, it was a fun process. I mean, we did it ourselves. And, people don't know the amazing thing about that is I'm in North Carolina, Joe's in New York, and we did this whole set and we didn't even see each other. That takes a lot of time and to trust each other to, all right, you handle this, I'll handle this. And, you do this part with graphics and I'll ship everything out when it comes in and you do so that's we have to, pat ourselves on the back for that because it's not easy to do. The power of social media and the way the world is great, but still not an easy thing to do in terms of, brainstorming.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely awesome. I'm looking forward to ripping it and
Good stuff. Good stuff.
on it, so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thanks for showing the box. That's cool. We had a great time doing it, and we learned a lot about, the industry and the way things work and the way people react to stuff and how to get people to react to stuff. So it was just a lot of fun. And we just love wrestling. We like the old school, wrestling. I mean, I would be lying to you if I told you I watch anything new except for Mas Lucha, which is a YouTube channel that has like 1 million subscribers. And it's like, it's all in Mexico. And you could see one day it'll be like this small gym. The next day it's like in this huge arena, but it's like people are watching, commenting. It's incredible. And, or if I'm at an indie show, like I have friends in the wrestling in business. So if they're wrestling, I might go to the show and hang out. But that's the only wrestling I do now, to be honest, to be completely honest. And I think Joe's like that too. But, it's still a cool thing. Love wrestling, and there was an in for it because we can't do baseball, we can't do football, we can't do hockey, we can't do any of that. The wrestling we can do, so it's kind of yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that. What inspired you guys to just like in general, like, hey, we want to make a card set?
This show.
Yeah.
So we originally doing the show, we didn't talk much about wrestling. I mean, I kind of got into like the cards and just I didn't really collect wrestling cards as a kid. Wrestling cards were like, I don't want a wrestling card. I thought that was like baseball. I didn't baseball card, like wrestling cards. But I was into wrestling, and like Joe, we were growing up. We love wrestling, but the funny thing about it is we were talking about wrestling on the. Sometimes we talk about baseball, and all of a sudden we do 40-minute straight of wrestling of 80s wrestling, and then we started getting collectors on, big wrestling collectors on the show. And, our minds just started going into the business side of it. Well, like, like Joe said, there's room here to do things. And we know, Joe has a lot of connections in the indie business. And we know cards. So it's like, hey, listen, let's try this. We made a deadline. We stuck to the deadline. It worked out. I mean, even with Sabu, Sabu's in Vegas and Joe was there on vacation. What are the odds that he was out there at the same time to get the autographs done? Everything, sometimes in life when things just work, it's going to be good because it's just flowing. And I think our energy, our energy was so good that, it went from talking on a show to have collectors on the show. And then it went to a wrestling set and we did it. So really the show kind of made this, into reality.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's funny, like if you ever see on YouTube, you ever see like the reaction videos where like they'll have kids that will listen to like Iron Maiden or something. These kids would never. It's kind of like when me and Joe started doing the show, we always talk about baseball. That's our main thing, but we get into wrestling and we'd be like pulling stuff on eBay up and we'd be like, yo, this is crazy. What? And this guy, Tony Vella, who's like just a legendary wrestling collector and chronicler of wrestling cards. His website, it's just like the go-to place for wrestling information. He saw it and was like, hey, you guys want to? So he kind of schooled us. And the cool thing about wrestling for me and Joe is like, we really didn't know anything about it at all. And now you know, we're like learning and we're always checking it out. So it was just very cool. And that's how the whole process went. And we were just like, yeah, let's do it. We have friends. I know a ton of people. I know so many wrestlers, and we had the passion to do it. We're just like, yo, let's just try it out. Like, what can happen? Boom, we made a set. So it was awesome. Really a lot of fun, gotta say.
That's super cool.
And graded, the whole set's graded, which is incredible. You know,
Yeah.
that
Well, CSG was so awesome enough to, you know, they didn't have to do it, but when I sent them an email, they were like, you know, they obviously having Sabu help, but you know, that was really cool for you know,
That's-
because obviously PSA and SGC, you know, they're not going to grade, you know, indie unless you're really out there. But, you know, having somebody like CSG, which I really feel they really are really, really good with grading. I feel like, you know, their grades are right on. And they have a really good business model and good people. So like for us to get on,
Yeah.
you know, we always shout out CSG because that's really cool to not only have you set out, but where people could actually go grade our cards and they can end up on eBay or the card show. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Or maybe even on ISO.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal. Me and Joe were just talking about that. But I want to transfer over. I have to ask you, this whole Topps, the Fanatics, I know you're linked in, you know, obviously with them. What do you feel like, can't predict the future, but what do you feel like when it's fully in the hands of Fanatics, what do you feel like in the hobby with Topps? What do you feel will come out of that? Do you have a good feeling about it?
So I have a good feeling about it, but I'll be the first to admit, I trust people way too much. I am an optimist, and I had a good feeling about it last year. So I go to the Topps conference, or I should say, I've gone to the Topps conference the last 2 years, and I hope to attend it in the future. And it's a really cool 2-day event in Arizona where you get a chance to speak very directly to the people. You know, the president of Topps, the president of Fanatics Collectibles was there this year. Last year, Josh Luber was there, who at the time was the chief vision officer of Fanatics Collectibles. But that just kind of tells you right there, like last year it was Josh Luber telling us all this stuff. And it's like, well, if this is true, if this happens, this is actually pretty cool. Then here we are a year later. Did all that happen? Did they implement? Did they carry it out? Well, now there's a new guy, Mike Mahan, and he was impressive. What he had to say about the hobby and the vision for the hobby was impressive. There's some things I believe infrastructure wise that they've already put in place that I think are going to make things better and are impressive. But still, for me, there is a little bit of like, but are they going to deliver? That I'm waiting on to see before I get to like, you know, they can definitely, they can woo the girl, if I'm the girl, pretty well. And the game that they talked was actually pretty good, and I think would be good for the hobby. You know, but will they deliver on their marketing side as far as growing the hobby? Will they continue? One thing that I really, really loved from the conference was it seemed like a few divisions that were previously either more niche or maybe not even more niche, but just because they were segmented, it was like you'd have a brand manager who had like 8 baseball brands and then also was handling this soccer brand or this entertainment property, or, you know, like these Star Wars cards. And because of that, they're stretched so thin that the Star Wars cards just have a very typical blaster hobby configuration. Not a ton of thought goes into it. You know, like they're not able to innovate a ton there, or like MLS, you know, there's some years where it has been a very non-innovative, you know, offering for soccer collectors in the States. And I feel like from our discussions and from what they shared and from the team that they have in place now, like instead of just one brand manager handling Star Wars, they've actually got an entertainment division with multiple people, including a head who's somewhat visionary himself. And so they're like, how do we make more cool products instead of just like, okay, now here's the Star Wars version of Topps. If they deliver on that, I think it will be very awesome. If they deliver on that in soccer, I think it'll be very awesome. If they segment baseball even further and have more and more cool, unique offerings in baseball, while maybe expanding the print runs of Flagship, but also hopefully expanding the audience of Flagship, I think it could be really cool for the hobby. That said, I'm at a point now where optimist me is also a little cautious of like, I really want to see Mike Mahan, the Fanatics Collectibles CEO. Like, I want to see him deliver. Everything they said at the conference I liked. Now, let's come back in a year and see if that progress is there. There was one thing, and I know that, again, this is a little bit intrinsic on that, because most people, it's sort of like, well, yeah, I saw Fanatics bought them and Fanatics runs their websites like this. Like, I've actually gotten a chance to talk directly to these people one-on-one and in small group settings. But there was a quality. I will say this. Mike Mahan, he actually came from Dick Clark Productions. He worked there for a decade in Hollywood and took it from like here's the New Year's Eve special to like the New Year's Eve special is the thing, and a lot of their other things that they would do around events. And so you think this guy's super Hollywood, but he had two moments where just off the cuff, he said collector things during a Q&A, not like a prepared speech. One collector got up and made some joke about 1978 Topps just being an ugly set. He's like, well, yeah, but that Eddie Murray is a beautiful card. And it's like, I couldn't have even off the cuff known, like, oh wait, 78 is Eddie Murray's rookie card. It's kind of cool to hear that from somebody that you may not know if they're really entrenched in the hobby or not, that they've got, like, it wasn't even like he was showing off. I don't think anyone else in the crowd even noticed it. But for me, it was like, oh, that's kind of interesting that just off the cuff, he would be able to respond on something about the 1978 Topps set, knowing who the key rookie card was. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's kind of all over the place, but I think it'll be interesting.
I just wanted to hear your insight because, I'm kind of with you. I don't know. I mean, I try to get everyone, especially people that are kind of involved with them in terms of knowing more than the average person. I just like to hear what everybody feels. No, we don't know. Obviously, like you just said, you get a good feeling, you hope for the best, but we don't know. But I wanted to, because there's you hear so many different things, especially if you read, you go on the internet, but to hear from you, I really like to hear, I appreciate your insight on that.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, it's easy. It's very easy as collectors to say, oh, print runs, they're just going to go, they're just going to print everything. And there is some extent of that, obviously, like they want to print more. But there's also like hoping that a company is smart enough to not spend however many million, 600 million or whatever, just to inflate the hobby for a year or two and then completely collapse it. Like, yeah, you have to think and hope that they are thinking beyond that. And the game that they're talking is that they are thinking beyond that. And so that makes me pull for them. That said, if the hobby itself does grow, we're going to need some bigger print runs. Imagine if there was 5x more collectors than there are today. Like, even just 2xing.
Could sell them quicker. They'd be, especially if you're like somebody like me, I collect like weirder stuff, and stuff will sit there for it to move sometimes. So yeah, I mean, it's weird. We always ask people what they think about this, and it's cool because me and Joe, sometimes we were a little bit like negative on it, but whatever. I'm kind of like, if they're gonna do more print runs and everything, then they're gonna make the hobby bigger. Like, can we make it like it was when we were kids, where I could walk to the store and buy a pack for $1? Like, adjust for inflation, have cards everywhere. If you're going to do it like that, like, let's get cards everywhere. Yeah. Like it used to do a gazillion cards. I want to see them, like, I want to be able to like go to my, wherever, Dunkin' Donuts, and get some kind of card pack, anything. But
well, it's cool you said that, Joe, because now I am, I remember during like COVID, you couldn't even find cards, right? You went to Target, there was nothing there. Now, I go with the kid, and, if you go to Dick's, they'll have cards in Dick's. If you go to, certain places, there's cards around where I was like, wow, like, I took the kid to get batting gloves and they had blasters in Dick's. I'm like, that's freaking cool, because there's, Dick's, everybody, yeah, adults go there, but what do you do if your kid plays sports? You go to Dick's, you get them equipment, and to see that, and she was like, Dad, look, there's cards. I was like, what do you mean cards? And it was just a whole, setup of cards right in Dick's. I'm like, that's genius. You go to Target now. The other day I went to Target. I mean, they had $3 packs of retail score or, they had like individual packs for $3. I'm like, that's cool. That's my kid. You don't have to spend $29 on a blaster. Hey, you know what? Go grab 2 packs. Let's go. And
Yeah.
That's how it should be. It should be in more places. It should be lower, just to get the kids. Because for adults, everybody doesn't have $30 to buy their kids, a blaster. It's different. Like how we, spent 50 cents. Obviously, the times change, but if you can go to Target and grab a pack for your kid for $3, I think you get more kids involved too.
Yeah. So there was another interesting thing. There was a ton that came out of that conference. So, forgive me for re-highlighting some of it, but they spoke specifically about an official partnership with Little League Baseball with a promotional program where every Little League Baseball team can go to a local hobby shop and claim a pack, and then that they would track through through all-stars and playoffs. And if your team makes the playoffs, you can go back and claim, a second tier reward and things like that. And so if they actually deliver on that, because I can imagine the logistics aren't necessarily easy either, but that's a great thing to addressing that.
Great idea.
How do we start getting, and even like you said, Dick's, you're getting to a sports crowd by being at Dick's. They're also at Lids now in the mall. It's a way to get cards in front of people that may not have seen them before. Which is good. And then they also talked a lot though about both segmentation and transparency. So if we're going to print flagship more, well, then we need other products that are lower print, where you can say, oh, you know what, there's only 250 rookie cards of this guy in this one, not 200,000 or whatever. And that comes down also to transparency, which is another thing. Even just looking at the companies that exist today, when the odds are on all the packages very clearly, it allows a collector who wants to truly understand the print run. And I think that's key and crucial. And I absolutely can't stand when you've got multiple SKUs of a product with, case hits being advertised, but it's are case hits even rare if you've got, a 2 million print run on this, and there's no odds on what a case hit actually is, or, how many base cards are printed. So again, those were things they preached. Those were things they said. I'm putting it out there now so that we can all come back a year from now and be on the show and say, hey, did we see more of that or did we see less of that? So make a list, Joe. Hold my feet to the fire.
100%. I mean, even what they did with the Judge and the Goldschmidt, where you could, go back to your LCS and they give you $20 or whatever, $40. I mean, that's cool, because, you could buy, I mean, I bought a jumbo pack of Topps Chrome. I think it was $30, and I hit a Judge, and I, $20 right back in. So, I mean, especially for kids or whatever, I mean, anything with incentives. I mean, there's people that spend tons of money a week on the hobby, and I was telling my wife, it's better I spend it on cars than going to a strip club or I'm in a bar at 12 at night, right? So, I mean, we spend money in the hobby, right? So, to have incentives, anything, even what you were talking about with Donnie Scott, stuff like that. I mean, just bring stuff that makes it more fun for the average collector, and not the high-end collectors. I mean, whatever, they could do whatever they want, but for the average collector to have different incentives, I think would be definitely appealing to the masses.
Yeah, I agree for sure. So,
yeah.
What I wanted to ask you before I forget is, what is your take about with the Fanatics with the LCS, say a smaller shop owner? Do you think they're going to be pushed out of the way, or compared to, because I have near me there's these 2 older gentlemen, they're in their 60s, they've been there for 30 years. All they do is talk about stories. Joe's seen pictures of this guy's shop. I mean, it's like you're back in the 80s. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. It's like an old school candy store. I mean, there's 2 older guys in there. They got commons, they got stuff, they got 80s stuff. Now, I also have another LCS that's in the same area, but these guys have like this huge store. They have every product. I mean, it's like you're in like, it's just like, it's like Bel Air to like, wherever, it's just two different things. But do you think those smaller will be pushed out, or do you think that they'll have a chance to still
So,
thrive?
so pushed out is a tough word.
I know.
I don't think,
I'm
I
saying
don't
it
think
is.
they'll be pushed out. I think what we will see, and this is pure speculation on my side,
Yeah.
but what I think we will see, because I heard this last year and this year at the conference from various people that are part of the TOPS program, was this interesting analogy to, big box retail reports. What I mean by that is, Target tells Hostess every single ding dong that sells. Hostess knows exactly how many ding dongs sell at 72nd Street in Omaha, Nebraska, and at La Cienega in West Hollywood. Like Hostess can plot, map, chart how many ding dongs they were short or they were over and expired and did like. And that's what big box does. Like Target has to do that as part of their deals with these companies. The hobby does not do that at all. The hobby's like, hey, did you sell it? Or, did you bought more because you sold more the last one? Like, and I think that's part of why Fanatics even bought TOPS to begin with, is they saw a huge inefficiency in the lack of data. And they said, hey, you know what? We're a data company at the end of the day. They got over 900 different online stores that are actually Fanatics. If you go to Orioles.com, the store there is powered by Fanatics. If you go to PSG soccer in France, it's powered by Fanatics. So they are acquiring all this data, and they can use that data to say, oh, we can afford to print more of this product, or we need to print less of this product, or we can charge $27.49 more of this and it'll still sell. So for over the last year, I've heard from Fanatics, like, it's really important that our partners buy into what we expect of them. So that's where the question becomes, is the 30-year-old shop run by, Tom Joe collector, who's been doing it for 30 years, 40 years, who feels like a throwback and it's awesome and we love the nostalgia and the smell of wood when we walk into the shop? Are they going to update their system to be able to say, oh yeah, we sold 7 packs of this and here's the customer's emails and here's their demographics, and like, are they going to step into that system, or are they going to resist that system because it's new and it's different?
Yep. Makes
That's
sense.
where there's a push-pull of, I don't want to say that they're going to be pushed out, but I'm like, from what I gather, again, this is my interpretation. I've not seen a sheet that says, here's the criteria. But it really is for Fanatics to succeed. What Fanatics is gambling on is if they can get this data, they can better optimize the supply chain. They can better optimize print runs. And you even wonder how much of the junk wax era was caused by people not looking at data, just printing based off their feelings, printing based off of the competition and having to beat the competition. Well, hopefully they're taking a measured approach to that level of inflation, to that level of, growth in the hobby, instead of just going with their gut and saying, oh yeah, let's print this much more this year. So it's a push-pull of, for the hobby to grow healthy, they need data. And does that hurt the person who's been doing it one way for 40 years and isn't able to adapt?
So like with a store, say an older, LCS that has the TOPS account, in the past, they weren't really giving TOPS any kind of data. Like as far as, TOPS obviously knows how many cases it sold, but like they want obviously more specific data. You're saying like way more. And that would be somebody with a TOPS.
It's what I'm gathering they're going to be asking for very soon. And
right.
Yeah, like historically, I don't even think they get data on what sells. They just get data on what you're buying. Like they assume
right.
It's sold if you're buying, if you're re-upping, if you're buying seconds,
Yeah.
But so, and honestly, what this would create in the past is a very bad cycle for hobby shop owners. I saw this firsthand in football. 2011 football was middling. I mean, yeah, you had Cam Newton, but there was a lot more products that came out that year. And, you had two companies bringing them out. And back then, Topps direct accounts would have to order like 6 to 9 months in advance. And so you're a hobby shop, you get this product in, it's a bit more expensive, it's newer, and it sits. It's not as popular. It's more expensive and it's less cards. Topps inception football, 2011. Well, a few weeks later, they're asking you to pre-order and commit for 2012. You're like, well, this year kind of stunk. I can't pre-commit and order that much. And also, I don't know, like hobby shop owners are so busy running their hobby shop. They're not as deep of prospectors as you and I are. They don't necessarily know, here's the college class that's coming out 9 months from now. Here's how big it's going to be. Here's, you've got 3 top quarterbacks, all that. Like, they don't have time for that. I mean, I've gone to the National after the draft and dealers have not known who the top 3 quarterbacks drafted were. In Cleveland, it was in Cleveland. They knew Baker Mayfield. They didn't know Blake Bortles, and he was the number 3 pick in the draft. None of the dealers in Cleveland that year knew him. So keep in mind, hobby shop owners are not the sports experts that we as buyers often are. And they were expected to make this big commitment in advance. So they would go light on 2012 football. Well, 2012 football comes out, Andrew Luck, RG3, Russell Wilson.
Damn.
And explodes in value. Well, now it's January. They made some profit, but not as much as they could have. And they're getting those commitments. Hey, what are you going to buy of 2013 football? Oh yeah, give me 3 cases, give me 5 cases. I want all the Inception. Give me 10 cases of Inception. Well, 2013 is Geno Smith and who was the other guy? I can't even remember who the other quarterback was. That was just a dud out the gate. So then they lost a whole lot of money on 2013. And so that was the cycle before. It was like the next year's print run was determined in part by how much dealers were pre-ordering. And that tells you so little about, like, that's just terrible data to go off of, public sentiment 9 months earlier for what the product's going to look like and the price points and all that. So that was a system that didn't work necessarily. Sometimes it would hit and other times you'd lose. So I don't know if that really sort of answers the question, but just like a different perspective there is like, that's what not data looks like.
But the push, I feel like maybe instead of using the word pushed out, maybe the older or the smaller LCSs need to adapt to the times, basically, if they want to stay in business, or, not saying they won't stay in business, but if they're forced to adapt to the times, it's just, and everybody should, no matter what your age or what business you're in, you have to adapt to what's going on. So, maybe that's just the case. Maybe they just need to.
One of my best friends in the hobby is Rex Gotcher at the Sports Card Shop in Michigan. And that's his handle across social media, the Sports Card Shop. I love it. And they don't do breaks, but he's successful because he understands adapting to the time. So I want to just be sort of clear. Like when I hear that, also a lot of people like, oh, I got to be on camera doing all this. No, not necessarily. But you do have to understand, the demands on retail today, demands on a shop, and the data side, or at least reporting side. And part of adapting to the times is maybe having an electronic inventory system versus, sticker labeling things. So I do just want to also highlight, again, adapt to the times doesn't mean like hire teenagers to run your social media and start ripping, boxes with teeny tank tops on. Like, it's not necessarily that, but yeah, there is some level of like, run your business like a business.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of my favorite hobby shops is in New Jersey, and when the whole Fanatics news broke, I asked the owner about it, and he was like, I don't know what, I don't even care. Like, he didn't even care. And this is a shop where you go in, and all he's doing is just sorting cards, and you go in, here's a massive like display case of vintage, here's vintage hockey, here are books. Like, it's just a great store. And
Mhm.
a lot of LCSs, unfortunately, they've grown lazy so that they just sell, wax, like new stuff. Here it is. And that's where they're making most of their money. And you go in and it's like they have a bunch of cards in a display and it's like, what do you got? Do you have anything else? Like, it doesn't even have to be vintage or anything, but like cool stuff. A lot of LCSs, they'll just have like kind of junky stuff, a couple of expensive cards, and they're making money off selling wax. And I get that. So it may force some places to have to go dig in the basement, pull out the cool cards, put them out.
Yeah.
And that's better for guys like me,
Yeah. And
But-
I'd add to that, or at least ask this guy who's a bit older, who has a shop you like going into for those reasons, is he selling on eBay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he adapted to the times.
Yep. Yep.
Like 20 years ago, we were having the same discussion about like, eBay shop. Oh, I'll never do that. And now it's like half the shops I know spend half their day actually selling inventory online somewhere, and the shop is just like a base of operations for that, plus the wax connection. But yeah, it's like, so was that adapting to the times? Did that push out hobby shop owners, or did it just force them to, get a cell phone?
No, because if you're able to do all those things, if you're able to say, look, I'm going to really find stuff that all these niche collectors like, I'm also going to put stuff on eBay, and I'm going to adhere to whatever the new thing that Fanatics wants to do, you're probably going to have a lot of success, but will that happen in every shop? Who knows? But it's definitely something that would be definitely enhanced. It's like when everybody works together on it, things can be awesome. When one person's not doing it, the whole thing doesn't work. But I just always hope for the best. I'm kind of cynical about it, to be honest. Like, I don't like the no competition thing. I like competition. I think like in the 90s, there was quite a bit of competition and we saw some of the coolest products, because people were, trying to outdo each other. So, but whatever, like I'm also, I'm trying to think positive and.
Joe, I disagree with you so much there though. And this is funny. And maybe this is where I'm way too inundated by the time I spent talking to distributors and talking to executives. But we hear that. But even right now, when there are still two companies competing, have you seen how much they mimic each other instead of competing?
Yeah.
We've got downtowns and we've got home field advantages. Like we've got kabooms and we've got, big kahunas that they're like now put like, we hear that, or we think that it's very easy, especially in America. And like, if we have a business background in America, we're taught like, oh, competition breeds excellence. But in the internet age, it is breeding mimicry more than it's even breeding excellence. And so I'm almost more excited to see what less competition and more focus on hopefully quality can do. And I've even I have a really good friend who used to be a top executive at Topps and isn't anymore. So I've asked his unbiased opinion on exclusive licenses. And he's like, the friction of competition takes away so much. Whereas with an exclusive license, you can actually focus on delivering like better experiences, better athlete connections, less redemptions. I know we still see them. If you say less redemptions, people just, they don't believe it because they still see a redemption. But I would definitely argue there's way less than there were 2 years ago, 5 years ago, especially. So I don't have exact stats on it, but I would just challenge you to just think like, is that possible that the friction caused by competition and the pain to the bottom line also, because you're not able to just focus. You don't have the full exclusive marketing capability. You're competing with somebody else for a set number of football collector dollars and a set number of basketball collector dollars, instead of just having free access to the basketball collector to say, how do I grow the basketball vertical? Now, if you're growing the basketball vertical and there's two companies, you're like, well, am I growing my competition? Am I growing there? Like, I'm out here marketing for new collectors, but are they going to take the new collectors I create because of, a certain bias towards one of their products versus mine? Whereas in an exclusive relationship scenario, you actually have incentive to grow the collector base because you don't have to worry about someone poaching what you're spending your time growing. So those are the arguments I've heard, and just a challenge.
Arguments. Look, I'm always, I just want to hear everybody's perspective because, we're just going to see, we're going to have to all wait and see what happens. But I mean, I definitely, we always talk about, like, I love Donruss cards, even without the logos. Like, I think some of them are so nice, and I wish Topps look at some of those cards and be like, wow. But it's different with baseball, obviously. But that's an interesting.
I absolutely wish that Donruss baseball were an MLB product.
Yeah,
I love Donruss, and
so nice.
Yeah.
Let me.
And the way that Panini still approaches it is good color, good designs, innovative inserts. Like, I really do enjoy it. So
they're awesome. Yeah, the Panini is an amazing company. Let me ask you. I just was wondering. It's kind of random. What do you think about Bowman U football cards? I mean, I think they're kind of cool. I was looking at them today. I just went to a kind of a rabbit hole, and I was looking at, like, all the draft picks and all that. I was like, yeah, this is kind of a cool thing. It's, I don't know. What do you think about that? It's not that expensive right now, and I think it's kind of a fun looking product.
the challenge for me is that I am just not a college football guy. I know it's weird. I live in Nebraska. If you can't tell, this is what Nebraska looks like. So for me, it will be very interesting. And even as a collector, so I mentioned, like, I chased Darnay Scott and Marshall Falk. My dad was chasing him, and we had great times, going to card shows, looking for those guys' rookies. As I've gotten older, I do not enjoy collecting football the way I do baseball. So it's tough for me to really get a read on the Bowman U product. I think they're doing a quality job with the product. I don't have the same appeal with that or with basketball at the college level that I do, honestly, with prospecting. Like, I love Team USA baseball. I've got these cards right here. Panini does these sets of Team USA baseball. Yep. These I like awesome. The USA uniforms. I like, there's quite a few. RJ Austin, I think he was, no, he's not a draft pick, but this guy Paxton Kling is going to be a draft pick next year. Brooks Lee had cards in here before he was in Bowman. And I feel like the Team USA uniform, Jacob Berry, he was another first round pick this year, is like something I can collect. Drew Jones doesn't even have a Bowman card yet, and there he is on Team USA. So it doesn't exactly, they look good. The set configurations, I feel like they're giving good attention to. It just doesn't speak to me because I don't like prospecting in football or basketball anymore because of how burned I've gotten on guys' careers. Whereas in baseball, even guys who have gotten burned on, I still enjoy their cards from that time.
I think me and Joe could relate to that. We're kind of on the same head with that. If I buy football or basketball 9 out of 10 times, I'll flip it and buy vintage or buy some baseball. Like, I'll buy it to sell. It's just like I don't really have a connection. I love some of the old stuff I have. There's some amazing, especially hockey. There's some amazing, but I can't get with the new. I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me. There might be a here that I pick up that I'll be like, wow, this is a great card. I'll hold it, but it's just a weird thing.
I do feel like the companies have done a terrible job, though, across the board. I'm not Mr. College Football guy, but college football is big, right?
Sure.
Like, there's a lot of people that love college football. That I'm in Nebraska. There's a lot of people that love college football that say, oh, I can't stand the NFL. I only like the college game. And I feel like all the companies have done a terrible job of marketing to that collector.
That's a great point.
I do feel like the secondary market for, these thick Texas patches and these, big Alabama patches, like the secondary market for those should be huge.
Yeah.
Because there's such giant fan bases for those things.
So
it'll be interesting if Bowman Chrome give it a few years and a few more connections to the universities, if they can start doing more stuff that is, grows that collector base among the fan base.
Yeah. I mean, I follow some YouTubes that are strictly college football. I mean, I'm not even a huge college football guy, but like some of these channels are really cool. And it's just like, he'll occasionally talk about the NFL, but it'll be like, well, I don't talk about the NFL. but just totally into college football. And it's fun because around the time of the bowl games, that's when I start watching and I have fun after work and all that. But that's cool. Yeah, I know it's always weird with college cards, right? Like minor leagues, totally different. Like baseball, it's like fine, no, it's really cool. But with college cards, basketball, like those pro set cards never had any value. And the Bowman U, I was just like, they look really nice. They look like Bowman. I mean, they're Bowman, like Bowman baseball, the firsts and all that. But yeah, that's it's interesting though. Like they definitely need to tap into that market to maximize that product because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that would buy that for sure. So
Yeah, a lot of them just don't know it exists.
Yeah. Do you have a card out there that's like a grail card that you want, like that you don't have? Is there one card out there or a few cards out there? Or is it?
So I really can't ever say that because I have my favorite card of all time.
That's awesome.
There's actually a full story behind this card, which I won't share now because I know we're getting close on time. It's been shared too many times.
I couldn't see the card. Is that a KB?
Yeah, it's Chris Bryant's 2014 Bowman Chrome Bowman
nice.
autograph. Yeah,
that's a beauty.
I love Chris Bryant, by the way. He reminds me of Derek Jeter. And I know all like the Cubbies fans are like tight now, but kid's awesome, man. Plays with reckless debate. Like a player. He's like one of those guys. He's gonna give you 100 all the time. So that's cool to have the card that you want in a slab.
Right? That's great. That's awesome. When you have your card already, that's beautiful. Yeah. Well, listen. Before we have to get into the ISO. You got to listen. This thing, I haven't conquered it yet, which I will, and we talked about it a few times. But please tell everybody about what you got because I really think this thing, it reminds me of like, the whole like the Loop app. It just reminds me of something you have a feeling that it's going to be really good. And I have that feeling about your thing, and I'm watching it grow every day and seeing you have that J-Rod card on there right now, that red to 5. I mean, huge card. I mean, I know that's exciting for you, but yeah, just please tell everybody about, how it came about too, and what's going on with you with that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking. So the website is iso.gg. So it's one of those new get with the times sites, doesn't end in .com. iso.gg. And what it is it's a site where anyone can spin up a marketplace. So the founders, they all work together at Snapchat, and they saw a lot of these platforms that were popping up, and the platforms were kind of building around a single tool. So it's like, eBay auctions, or some of the auction houses with their platforms like auctions. Some of the video apps, it's like, you can do a video auction. And they thought you don't necessarily need to download a whole new system just to have that tool. Like that's a tool, it's not a platform. So the first part was, how do we put all the tools in one place where we can actually bring it to where you already are? Like people are on YouTube. Why can't we bring the video selling directly to YouTube? Why can't we bring, the live auctions to a Facebook group? Why can't we do all that? And then the other side of it was, how do we make it so that communities are incentivized to come here? Because again, a lot of platforms that exist, they're two-sided. They're either promising small people, hey, we'll bring you buyers. Well, where do those buyers come from? Well, they talk to big people and they say, oh yeah, bring your community over here. We'll give you a discount. And the minute the community's over there, they start peppering them. Check out this person, check out this person, check out this person. They take users and they peanut butter them across the app, across the platform. So we said, well, how can we make something where people can build their community like this instead of have their community be for the benefit of us? And so that's what ISO is. It's you can spin up a marketplace. And what that means is Goat Jerseys can go out there and put up the Goat Shop. And that's a place where, the Goat jerseys can sell. You can sell your fun, 1984 Peachy baseball packs, which I bought a few from you, had a lot of fun with those. You can sell jerseys, you can sell unique stuff, but you can also say, hey, Joe, you've got a ton of unique stuff. I'm trying to build a marketplace of unique sports stuff. I'm going to invite you in to sell in my marketplace because I'm goat jerseys and I've got this audience, but I can only source so much. I only have so much time to list, so much time to pack. And Joe, you've got really cool stuff. Do you want access to my audience? Let's work together. So on the surface, it looks like eBay, MySlabs, Loop all had a baby because you have all those tools. But underneath the surface is the fact that the goat shop can have as many sellers as goat curates that fit his brand to build a place where his community wants to come and shop because they'll be able to get all those cool goat things. And then in turn, they can apply and say, hey, you know what? I bought all the cool things I want for my collection, but I've got these other cool things that I don't want. Can I sell them there? And it just enhances this whole idea of like, oh, this is what a goat shop should look like. This is what goat jersey shop should look like. And then we have things like a community leaderboard that has rewards tied in. So people that engage and, are part of the community can get rewards from us. We offer buyer protection and seller protection. We have eBay style auctions. We have live auctions. So like you just mentioned, we have a Julio Rodriguez red speckle refractor from Topps Chrome numbered to 5, which is super unique because if you remember the Topps Chrome pack out this year, they didn't have all the other colored parallels that they normally have. And Topps Chrome is, like the pinnacle rookie for baseball. And there's no purple to 250s. There's no blue to 150s this year. There's only red speckle to 5, orange speckle to 25, and the superfractor. And so it's like once the 31 or so parallels that get pack hit end up with a J-Rod collector somewhere, they're not going to go back into the, they're not going to be hitting the market constantly. So this is your one chance to get, PSA 9 pop 1 red speckle to 5. Last time I checked, it was over $3,500 already at auction on our site. So you can get traffic there too. But that's the idea, is that it's a place where a community can grow together and feel really invested in each other, get rewards, have fun, and not have to worry about like, oh, everybody needs to go download that thing now. And, like all of a sudden they're getting notified by people they don't know. Hey, so-and-so's live. Well, I didn't join this for so-and-so. I didn't join this for basketball breaks. I joined this for crazy, weird, unique stuff. Well, yeah. So then why should you get solicited basketball breaks? Get solicited the goat shop and what goat jerseys curates that into. So.
Yeah, I love it. It's very user friendly. And I love what you said. What do you like? What do you enjoy? What do you want to say? Well, that's your shop. You made it. It was so easy. And, it hit me in the head. Like, it is really that easy. Like, what do you enjoy? You enjoy collectibles? You enjoy jerseys? You enjoy cards? Hats? What do you like? That's your shop.
I'm going to give a freebie to anybody that thinks they're a competing business. It blows my mind. I have every one of those apps on my phone. I've downloaded them all, and it's because a friend of mine is on there selling, right? A friend of mine's on this app. Download it, check out my stream. A friend of mine's over here, download it and watch my items for sale. I'm on all of them. And the notifications I get? Guess who's live? I don't want that. Send me a notification. Hey, the Cubs are available in a Bowman draft break. Send me that notification. That's what I want. Like, why do I care if, like New Haven, New Haven Boys is live? I don't know why I went to, sorry, Connecticut. I'm beating up on Connecticut. But like, I don't care if New Haven Boys is live with Prism, Spectra, BOGO boxes. I don't care about that. I've given you no indication I care about that. I signed up to the app to buy this type of product. That's what I want. I want to be in a community that's selling that type of product. I don't care about all that other stuff. They're just wasting notifications on me. It blows my mind. So freebie for all of them, but also hopefully, proponent for ISO is like, get on ISO, look around there. You can find communities on that homepage, join a few communities that speak to you and just become part of them and enjoy what they're doing. If you don't like hockey, don't join a hockey focused community. And you're not going to get bugged with hockey sales. Like, if you do like hockey, go build up a hockey community with all the other people that like hockey. Have a bunch of fun, So, all right, rant over. Thank you for giving me the the soapbox.
No, it's great stuff, man. Really,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, no, it sounds really great. I do like that. Sounds amazing. And thanks for coming on and talking about all this stuff. It's cool, to get all your perspective. Like that's the cool thing about the show. Me and Joe, we just learned so much about the hobby, and because I'm stuck in like trying to find cards and all this stuff. So there's so many things going on in the hobby that I need to talk to people and check out videos and stuff to keep me totally up to date. Because I'm like in some weird box panel rabbit hole or something. But it's cool. It's just awesome.
Which box panels? That's what I want to know.
86 tops.
Joe's really good with the cutter.
Yeah. I cut. I got some 86 tops Dwight Gooden box panels with an auto that I just got. So the thing cards that is so amazing is that the box panel bottom is a variation and a parallel, and they didn't even know they were making variations and parallels. Like which cards I'm talking about. Like if you look at the bottom of certain 80s boxes, you'll see like Don Mattingly in a different pose, and the colors are different. And like people throw them in the garbage, and they're really hard to get in a high grade. So I love stuff like that, and things like that occupy a lot of time. And I don't have time for a lot of the drama and all the other stuff, but like learning about what's happening in the hobby as far as the industry itself, always awesome for us to talk to dudes like you. So thank you, sir.
Well, the same. That's the two-way street that I love. Like I love hearing about that. And I know, like Joe, I wasn't even following you on Instagram before this, but I do now. Hall of Fame minor. I added you right before we got rolling. So
awesome.
I want to see more of those box toppers. I want to see line it up in a gallery for us. I want to see it.
Yeah, I'll do it, man. I will.
We're gonna have some of those in the shop soon. We'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But yeah, listen, man, we appreciate your time, appreciate all your insight, and I always appreciate what you do for the hobby, and as well as you're a regular down-to-earth guy, man, easy to talk to, and we'll be definitely having you on again down the road.
Well, thank you guys. This was a ton of fun. I commit to having stuff on my walls the next time I'm on the show.
Done deal.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Thank you.
we appreciate it.
Bye for now.